Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and we're just coming out of what I think is the third heat wave of the summer so far in Britain, and it's only just mid-July. The Met Office and scientific experts are making it clear that extreme heat is the new norm and we need to deal with it. At the same time, Ed Miliband is today making what he's calling a State of the Climate and Nature address to MPs, which he intends to make every year. This is something where Labour are very much on the side of the public and intending to draw a clear distinction between themselves and Reform UK. If the Conservatives had any sense, they would do the same. But they long ago abandoned logic, so this is also helping Labour keep the Tories in their box as well. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So I'm going to begin by saying, at the time this video comes out, I think Ed Miliband will have had his address and various MPs will have had their say on it. But the time I'm recording it, that hasn't happened. But don't worry, if Kemi Badenoch or Lee Anderson or any other Tory half-wits do something particularly entertaining in terms of parading their stupidity, I'll get onto that tomorrow. But the public attitude towards climate change is fundamentally different today to when I was growing up. Being clear, the scientific community has been warning of the problems, very specifically, of man-made climate change for over 100 years. In fact, scientifically, the issue has been so clear that we have been learning about man-made climate change in school science lessons since at least the 1980s when I was a child. So although I say that public attitudes were very different when I was growing up, not in science class they weren't. Nothing's changed in terms of the science. It's just finally the public have cottoned on. It was only in the media owned by billionaires on the same side as the corporate fossil fuel giants where any doubt was raised with the public. But although these same dishonest outlets are still pushing their same disinformation, the public are now satisfied that the climate emergency is real and needs to be addressed. Even Reform UK voters, by and large, support Labour's efforts to move on net zero policies, something the Tories could have more effectively used to attract right-wing votes than adopting less committed versions of reform policies. The nature of the disinformation these days has shifted a little, from trying to deny climate change to trying to argue that either we can't do anything about it or that we can, but it will be too expensive. And of course, there is a cost of pursuing net zero policies. But what the media don't tell you is that there is a cost to not pursuing net zero policies. And as Miliband is pointing out today, the cost of not pursuing net zero is greater than the cost of going for it. So let's look at some examples. Like, first of all, the easy one, cost of energy. The price we pay for energy isn't related to the cost of producing electricity. That would make far too much sense. It's of producing it by the most expensive method. Now, why is this? It's because it doesn't matter how electricity is generated. It generally goes onto the national grid and we just draw from that for most domestic and business uses. And because half of our energy is produced from fossil fuels, and that's a very expensive way to do it, our energy is pegged to the price of producing electricity from gas. But solar and wind are way cheaper. Taking all costs into account, including building, maintaining, decommissioning, the whole lifetime of a project, it costs £77 per megawatt hour to produce electricity from gas. But it costs £41 for offshore wind, even less, £36 for onshore wind, which the Tories blocked for years, and £30 for large-scale solar. It's just way cheaper to generate electricity from wind and solar. This is something that is different to when I was younger, when fossil fuels were seen as a cheap way of producing electricity. Nowadays, it's not, and people want to catch up on this. This idea that we can't afford net zero energy solutions is just wrong. In fact, it's not just wrong, it's the complete opposite of what is correct. And in terms of cost, there's another advantage to solar and wind as well. The price suddenly doesn't go up when a major fossil fuel producer decides to have a tantrum. And several major gas producers around the world are politically unstable. Labour have tried to make the argument that net zero isn't just cheaper. It protects us from unexpected price hikes whenever you get a bit of global instability. So using fossil fuels for energy, it costs more, basically double. If we had all of our energy from solar and wind, our energy prices would literally halve overnight. However, the politics being what it is, we're also having to include some nuclear into the equation to keep people happy, which means that energy bills won't actually halve because nuclear is expensive as well. But it also doesn't throw up carbon into the atmosphere much beyond the concrete needed to build the facilities. And also we don't need as much nuclear as gas to smooth furrowed brows about largely unfounded fears of having all our energy from solar and wind. So the overall cost will still be lower once this project is completed. But there are other costs associated with relying on carbon heavy production as well. Extreme heat forces you to either pay for air conditioning or lose productivity. People just cannot work as well in extreme heat. Some people will be working outside. They won't be able to do anything about that. So although ice cream sales might be up, lots of sectors of our economy struggle in the heat. Some people may even struggle to get to work as trains often fail in extreme heat. Then there's the cost of dealing with the damage caused by not only fires, but flooding at other times of the year. Ed Miliband and Steve Reed were promoting the re-establishment of floodplains last week. The cost of allowing annual floods to just batter properties, that's a huge cost. And something Labour's policies will help reduce, and Reform UK's would just make worse. There was a report by the LSE in 2022 that showed that climate change was already costing the UK 1.1% of our GDP, and that this would rise to 3.3% by 2050 and 7.4% by 2100. I mean, we've done enough damage to our economy with Brexit. Can we not add to it? I mean, that is the cost of doing nothing. Ed Miliband is making the point that MPs who want to do nothing are betraying future generations. And when you consider that our economy is not delivering on people's expectations right now, like, why would you do nothing about something that's shrinking it at the moment? But net zero is not just a necessary cost, it's also an opportunity. China is the world leader in clean technology. Biden tried to move to get the USA to catch up, and the EU also have similar plans. But right now, China is the absolute world leader. But of course, people wouldn't want to be dependent upon Chinese technology. We've seen what excessive dependence on like one country can do this year. With Trump's behaviour on the world stage, Europe is learning a harsh lesson on what happens when you're too dependent upon the United States for both trade and especially defence and security. So the UK has the opportunity to develop new technology, not just for our own benefit, but to sell around the world, because the world would enjoy being able to diversify its dependence on these things. It isn't just the UK who's taking climate change seriously. Plenty of countries have been doing so for a long time. More are doing so as the effects become more obvious, more destructive, and above all, more costly. Because as the LSE report showed in 2022, net zero is not expensive, but climate change is. And so we come to Ed Miliband's State of Climate and Nature in Parliament today. So he's launching this initiative in order to make MPs debate what the public already mostly recognise is a serious issue. But it serves two political purposes as well. So it will be highlighting what the Labour government are doing to tackle the emergency and provide economic benefits. It would work better if Labour upped their comms game, because I don't expect the mainstream media to really spend much time on it. But it's nonetheless a big parliamentary show of what the government are doing. And because the statement is going to be made every year from this year onwards, it will be heavy from next year, you would imagine, on not just plans for the future, but progress made so far. And the second purpose is to get MPs to make their own positions clear. Reform UK are adopting an anti-net zero attitude to attract funding and also just to be contrary. The Tories, having once been supporters of net zero, are now adopting Reform's position because they are idiots. But how many of their MPs will back the leadership on this one? The statement will invite MPs from across the House to give their views, and local groups will then be able to share their statements, or maybe their absence from the debate altogether, with voters in their constituency. Something like this can be just as useful to the Green Party, Lib Dem, SNP implied in their own battles with Reform UK and the Tories. It's not just an invitation, it's a demand that MPs nail their colours to the mast. Are they on the side of the public in tackling climate change, which is killing people, wrecking lives, costing the economy a fortune? Or are they on the side of the fossil fuel giants who are getting richer while the rest of us are getting poorer? But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.